In the realm of residential design, a quiet revolution is taking place. It's not just about modernism or nostalgia, it's about the union of both. Welcome to the world of the elevated barn, homes that rise from the pastoral spirit of agrarian buildings, refined with minimalist lines, glass, and steel to reflect contemporary aspirations. The barn, with its simple silhouette and utilitarian roots, has long symbolized function over form. From Dutch gambrels to American timber frames, barns were built for work. Yet it's this very honesty and structural clarity that modern architects now admire and reimagine, elevating their purpose from farmstead to forever home. An elevated barn is not merely a converted barn. It's a reinterpreted concept, where volume, texture, and light take precedence. These homes are often characterized by soaring ceilings, exposed trusses, sleek finishes, and an interplay between rustic warmth and minimalist geometry. It's not revival, it's reinvention. At the heart of the elevated barn is space. Vaulted ceilings create an atmosphere of grandeur and airiness. Clerestory windows, floor-to-ceiling glass panels, and open-plan interiors allow natural light to flood the home, mirroring the openness of traditional barns while serving modern lifestyles. materials are carefully chosen to evoke the memory of tradition. Expect reclaimed timber, weathered steel, lime-washed stone, and wide plank flooring. These tactile surfaces are balanced by polished concrete, matte black fixtures, and minimalist cabinetry, a contrast that speaks to both heritage and progress. The gabled roof is a barn icon, and in elevated barn architecture, it becomes a bold gesture. Often stretched or sharpened, this roofline anchors the home in its rural past while adding a dramatic profile that stands out in both pastoral and suburban landscapes. Barns were once wide, undivided spaces for livestock or storage. Today's elevated barn homes adopt this ethos with open layouts that encourage connection and flow. Kitchens merge with dining areas, living rooms spill into loft spaces. The structure breathes, just like the landscape it honors. Large picture windows are not merely aesthetic, they are frames for nature. Elevated barns often sit in rural or semi-rural settings, and the design intentionally draws the outside in. These homes don't dominate their environment, they celebrate it, grounding modern life in nature's rhythm. Color schemes stay restrained, with whites, grays, blacks, and earth tones forming the base. But within this neutrality lies a rich visual texture: wood grain, patinated metal, linen curtains. The palette is calm yet soulful, elevating the mood of each room without overwhelming it. Steel beams, black-framed windows, and exposed concrete meet barn doors, rough-sawn wood, and grainy surfaces. This juxtaposition is key to the elevated barn style, honoring the working-class roots of the barn while speaking to the sleek aspirations of modern homeowners. Where hay once was stored, now sits a reading nook or home office. The elevated barn reimagines mezzanines and lofts as intimate, suspended spaces that retain the barn's verticality while serving today's needs for privacy and retreat within an open concept. is a deep psychological appeal in the simplicity of barn-inspired design. No ornamentation, no excess. Just structure, shadow, and substance. The elevated barn calms the senses, a response to our cluttered digital age, by offering shelter in its purest architectural form. Reusing barn wood, incorporating passive solar design, and opting for local materials, elevated barns are often sustainable by nature. Their form lends itself to energy efficiency, while their philosophy of less but better inherently reduces environmental impact. Sliding glass walls, covered porches, and patios that mirror interior finishes ensure seamless transitions between inside and out. Elevated barns are designed for living with the land, whether it's a vineyard in Napa or a windswept field in Vermont. With their dramatic heights, these homes often feature tall fireplaces, vertical wood cladding, and long pendant lights to emphasize verticality. These elements make the home feel cathedral-like, spiritual, grounded, and aspirational all at once. The humble mudroom, once a utilitarian space in working barns, has evolved into a design feature. In elevated barn homes, it's a warm threshold, featuring bench seating, wood lockers, and industrial hooks. Practical, yes, but also artful and intentional. In open barn-style homes, the staircase becomes a centerpiece. Floating wood treads, steel railings, or sculptural zigzag forms rise in the center of the volume, adding architectural drama while connecting multi-level spaces with grace. Sliding barn doors are often cliché in farmhouse-style decor, but in the elevated barn, they're refined. Oversized, minimal, and often made from reclaimed wood or steel, they glide with quiet strength, functional art that divides space with intention. many elevated barn homes, a central fireplace anchors the great room. Whether clad in raw stone or smooth blackened steel, these fireplaces nod to the hearth as the historical heart of the home, offering both physical and emotional warmth. Lighting in these spaces is never an afterthought. Think pendant clusters suspended like constellations, linear chandeliers that echo the beam lines, and sconces that highlight texture. Each fixture acts as a punctuation mark in the home's architectural sentence. Furnishings lean toward the minimal yet comfortable, linen-covered sofas, shaker-inspired dining chairs, live-edge tables. The idea is to let the architecture sing, while furniture supports without competing. Every piece is intentional and breathable, just like the home itself. In the elevated barn, bedrooms are minimalist cocoons. Vaulted ceilings, wooden beams, and views of the landscape make sleep feel sacred. These spaces often avoid excess decor, relying instead on architecture and light to soothe and inspire. Soaking tubs under pitched roofs, matte black fixtures, stone sinks, and skylights, bathrooms in these homes channel rustic luxury. The barn's elemental history becomes a backdrop for contemporary spa-like experiences, combining relaxation with architectural drama. Kitchens are typically central, open, and communal. Islands are oversized and sculptural. Cabinetry is often flush and handle-free. Materials like stone, steel, and wood echo the home's exterior, making the kitchen feel like an extension of the structure itself. Many elevated barns were dark exteriors, charcoal, black, or deep navy, to help them nestle into their surroundings. These bold choices, often in vertical wood or standing seam metal, contrast beautifully with light interiors and add a sense of grounded drama. While both borrow from rural aesthetics, the modern farmhouse often leans decorative. The elevated barn, in contrast, is about restraint and rigor. It's not cute, it's quiet. It doesn't mimic history, it reshapes it. Less nostalgia, more architectural poetry. While ideally suited to rural settings, elevated barns work in the suburbs or even on urban edges. Their clean lines, sustainable features, and honest materials appeal across geographies. What matters most is how the design connects to its place, not just where it stands. Firms like Olsen Kundig, Workshop/APD, and CLB Architects have embraced the barn as a typology for innovation. Their designs showcase how the humble barn can be elevated into an architectural language, sculptural, serene, and endlessly relevant. More than a style, the elevated barn is a philosophy. It invites us to live with less but better, to find beauty in simplicity, to align ourselves with nature and history while embracing the conveniences of modern life. It is a slower, more intentional way to dwell. The elevated barn is not a passing trend, it's a thoughtful response to our yearning for meaning in design. Rooted in history, yet poised for the future, these homes offer more than shelter. They offer a lifestyle that honors the land, the light, and the quiet power of simplicity,